Nazi Germany to this point, we saw the implementation of eugenics. Even before Nazi Germany became a vehicle of tyranny throughout Europe. Eugenics, thanks to Francis Galton, the cousin of Charles Darwin, I believe, already had this philosophy spreading throughout Europe, those that are the higher class and those that are the lower class. And all of a sudden, 50, 60 years later, transhumanism is being talked about on a regular basis. I just look at Wired magazine today. So how did we get from eugenics to transhumanism? Is there a connection here with some of the same powerful either banking families or bloodlines? How did we get from that to where we are today?
Yeah, certainly could be. Obviously, eugenics was, the whole idea was to create a superior bloodline, improve the human gene pool by encouraging breeding among those families that you're talking about, some of the wealthy Europeans and whatever, while at the same time discouraging breeding among, the unwantables. And if we couldn't discourage them from breeding, then for a long time we would simply sterilize them, and we'd write laws around why we were doing it.
Right, just 70 years ago, 80 years ago, there'd be a picture of someone, and based on the size of their jaw, the size of their nose, particular ethnic groups within Italy, these are more likely to be rapists or killers based on how they look, correct?
Right, yeah, that's exactly right. And that's a piece of our history, again, that, most Americans don't realize that even up until recent history. I think in the 70s, the last of these laws were actually being, taken off the textbook. And I would tell you that people like James Hughes, other leaders within transhumanism, that's why they talk about democracy. They don't have an interest in seeing the kind of selective extermination that was being practiced in Germany, but it still is wishful thinking. It is still going to lead to a classification of haves and have-nots, a classification of people, and the divide between the human races, is going to be deepened by those who have the opportunities of human enhancement.
Now, I want to ask you your thoughts on China. Do you see any specific reason why China's been involved also in this push to expand the limits of what is physically possible in terms of transhumanism? I mean, you just got done talking about organ harvesting, and they've obviously had a lot of experience harvesting the organs of the Falun Gong there. Your thoughts on China today and its part in this?
Well, I'm not an expert on China, and I have private thoughts about why they would be so interested in continuing to invest in our own fiat currency, and how that in the very near future may give them a dominant role in almost setting policy for the way, foreign policy at least, the way it will be written and the way it will be conducted, wars that we may fight. But with regard to their mores, their values, at least from the government side, as it is imposed downward upon the population, is not like ours historically have been, in that they don't value life in the same way that we do. Their one-child policy, their willingness to harvest organs from prison inmates, allow those to be sold in a kind of a black market operation, and they have been investing in technologies that will lend itself to transhumanist aspirations.
We've also forced many church members underground as well.
Forced church members underground. So, what role will they play? I think everybody realizes now that whatever the future is, unless something radically changes, China is going to be somewhere in a dominant role, taking advantage of whatever the technologies are, whatever the currencies are. And I just have I'm not an expert in this field. I have a very strange feeling, though, about what's happening right now with regard to the Titanic of us printing money we don't have, and China continuing to invest in owning the debt of the United States, and how at some point in the near future the walls really could crumble down around us. Why does China want to own so much debt? Well, because it can be paid in territory. And even our own president has said this in the past, that when you only have 5% or 10% of the gold in Fort Knox that you need to stand behind how many dollars you've printed, and China has come in and they bought all of this debt of the United States, and all of a sudden your economy goes to collapse, how are you going to pay China back for what they've invested in? The only gold you got left is territory, it's land. And so you start surrendering large pieces of the United States to somebody who essentially can foreclose on you. Now, of course, that would probably lead to a war unless it happens over a period of time. Drip, drip, drip. Give us all enough time to get used to it as it unfolds.
Or, if our own government is in on this, that could be the point where the foreign troops are called in, the peacekeepers. If there's some sort of agreement where, well, there's a massive level of debt that's in the multi-trillions, here is this chunk of land in, say, off the coast of Oregon, perhaps, or maybe off the coast of California. Obviously, there's going to be uproar if that were to take place.
Yeah, how it relates to transhumanism. See, you're the expert on this, and as I understand it, maybe it's a secret. You probably will be producing a film at some point in the future on this, and I can't wait to see it. But I'm certainly not the expert that you are on that matter.
Well, hopefully, when I get the film done, it'll shed some light on this and hopefully connect some new dots. But I think a lot of these things that we're talking about are coming together at this particular point in time, where there are many different particular challenges and outcomes. And I think really it's a matter of how we respond to these challenges that'll dictate what the future really holds. I mean, on a philosophical note, I think there's some things that might potentially be predestined, but yet there is still potentially an ability to change some of this if we were to get active, if we were to start speaking out against these things.
Yeah, and to that end, I mean, I have to tell you as an old guy, I'm really happy with some of what I'm seeing happening here in the United States right now. The Tea Party movement, the counterculture movement. See, I remember the days of the hippies. I was a hippie. Can you imagine that? I had hair down to here. And I still recall my buddies, out in the middle of the road, come on, Tom, let's go to Woodstock. Well, this was certainly just a ragtag group of kids, but it started happening everywhere. It was Haight-Ashbury.
You went to Woodstock?
Huh? I didn't get to go, no. But I'm saying I remember them in the middle of the road saying, "Come on," and I couldn't go. Oh, you got to be there. Well, I wish now I would have went. But the point is, it was a cultural phenomenon. It was a grassroots awakening. You couldn't have manufactured it, and it certainly wasn't the established power structures that were making this happen.
No, I don't
and
believe
and
that.
My entire adult life, I have been waiting for a moment. I've been out there like you, Alex. I've been out there sometimes preaching to I don't know who, wondering if anybody's even listening. I remember when I preached the Religious Broadcasters Convention 1991, and I said, if Americans don't wake up and teach their kids how to think, we will have a dictator in this country within 10 years. Well, that fell like a lead balloon. All these evangelicals sitting out there like, oh my gosh, is he back on that again? Come on, let's get to Denny's. I want to eat some breakfast. So many years I've been waiting, and all of a sudden, just kind of like from out of nowhere, you've got a patriotic movement in this country, and it's happening, and it's spontaneous. And what's hilarious is as the Democrats try to own it, the Tea Party movement, and I'm not just talking about the Tea Party movement, but that puts a face on what I mean by this grassroots movement. They don't want the Democrats to own them. So now the Republicans come in and they put 2 or 3 of their speakers out there on the platform and they try to take ownership of it. And but the movement is still rebelling against that because it's not a one-party movement. It's much bigger than that. We have a problem in our government. And if we are going to stop the path that we're on, we better do it now. We may be the last generation and the last hope. Well, for whatever reason, the hippies believed that they could make a difference. If for 1 minute they would have thought about it, they'd have probably gave up. But they were too dumb, if you will, to know that they couldn't make a difference, and they were too energized to believe that they couldn't make a difference. And I'm using dumb tongue-in-cheek. That was what the establishment thought of them. But they did make a difference. They changed executive law. They brought home.
We'll go and cut that. Go ahead, Tom.
Are we out of time?
Well, we're going to keep it going, I think, for about a good half hour or so. Probably continue on here.
Well, how long have we been here? What time is it?
We got about 1 hour in. We could I can edit that part.
Okay.
So we can go ahead and treat this as a break then, Bill. Okay, so how much longer do you think? Well,
she's got us on a schedule. We're actually supposed to be at McMinimans.
3:43.
Oh, we're good for a few minutes.
Okay.
You're good for more like a 10-minute wrap-up?
Okay, 10 minutes.
Let's do a 10-minute
Yeah.
wrap-up.
Okay.
Where were we? Okay, you heard that, Bill? That we're wrapping this up in the next 10, so pick up where you left off at.